This is the Team Blaney Podcast.
Well, Steve, we'd like to welcome Ryan Flores, the front tire changer for Ryan Blaney's championship-winning number 12 pit crew, to the Team Blaney Podcast. Ryan, thanks for giving us some of your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. Excited to be here.
Absolutely. Steve and I have been big fans of yours. I know you've been kind of on and off Ryan's car over the years, but also big fans of your own podcast there, Stacking Pennies. Avid listeners of that, and avid fans of your work out there on the 12 crew. We know it's a grueling schedule for you guys. Sometimes it's a thankless job, but just know that there's plenty of fans out there that are really appreciative of what you guys do week to week.
Yeah, I think as I was just thinking about it as you were talking, I think this will be my 18th season traveling. I think I've spent almost half of that with Ryan. So I've been with, like we said, back and forth when we all went through that big switch to Brad's team, but back with Ryan now, and I've spent the majority of my career with him.
So let's talk a little bit about your career. We've had several crew members come on, and it's always interesting hearing their stories, but what was kind of maybe your first introduction into racing, or what kind of got you into the sport in the first place?
Yeah, my dad was street stock racer back in New Jersey. He raced kind of everything, started with bicycles. He was first generation racer, started with bicycles, motocross, and then we grew up in New Jersey by a track called Wall Stadium, so that kind of became home. And I started driving when I was 5 years old, and I've just raced all the way through, and just grew up. I'm a little bit different than like the rest of our pit crew guys who are athletes now. I moved down here, and right after high school, my goal was always to work for a race team. When I realized I didn't have enough money to drive anymore, so yeah, I've been on the road ever since. Right after high school, been on the road since I was 19. So been in the Cup garage for damn near half my life.
How do you get into racing though? Like, I mean, your dad was doing it. I mean, did he give you like some rules of like how you're going to progress, or were you kind of given some tools? Did you learn how to build a car from the ground up, that kind of thing, maybe?
Yeah, so like my dad, growing up, like I said, he was a street stock guy, so that was back in the days of like if you wrecked on Saturday night, you were in the junkyard on Sunday pulling parts out, right? You didn't just go to like All Star or Motor State and order a spindle. That's not how that worked. So we were fortunate right there by Wall Stadium. There was a junkyard called Osborne's Auto Wreckers, and I spent many of Sundays in there with Glenn Osborne, the guy that owned it. My dad would be, taking spindles off or lower control arms, and I'd be riding around in the car, like in the excavator. We'd be picking up cars and crushing them, and that was my earliest memories of just going racing. And I always, even like if my dad was racing and my mom couldn't go to the track, I would bum a ride with my aunt or one of my friends. I was always at the racetrack, and the first rules were you go into Wall Stadium, you don't go outside that gate, and when the gate you don't, when you go in the gate, you don't go outside. And at the end of the night, you come in the pits and go to the trailer. So I think from about 5 years old on, I was in the grandstands some nights by myself, just running around. But it takes I'm starting to learn myself. It takes a village to raise a kid. And everybody at Wall Stadium growing up was kind of my village. And yeah, that was it. We started driving quarter midgets just like Ryan did at 5, and progressed through that until I was 14, and we did move up and ran some big car stuff. And that's when I really had to start just learn how to work on the stuff myself. I came from a family that my cousin Keith, he was a fabricator. He had a fabrication business in New Jersey. My dad obviously built his own race cars. And I started working for the Blewett family as well. Jimmy and John Blewett, who were a pretty prominent New Jersey racing family. So it was trial by fire pretty quick there.
So let's talk about this move from New Jersey to North Carolina. Like I mentioned before, we've talked to several crew guys, and some of them always have an interesting story. Like, I just packed my bags. I knew this is what I wanted to do. I moved to North Carolina. I slept on so-and-so's couch. You gave me a tip to go over to this place and knock on their door. I know things were a lot different when you were there than they are now, when you're trying to get into actually work with the NASCAR team. So what was the progression there coming from New Jersey into North Carolina?
Yeah, I think, I don't think it's it's not really a secret. My dad battled addiction quite a bit in my early teenage years, and my parents ended up getting split up, and it was like a broken home. And I kind of, like, my mom always did a great job, but I just kind of always wanted to be racing and just get away from, you know, that whole kind of mess of a nasty divorce. And that's where I found myself with the Blewett, staying on their couch and going racing with the Molesworths. We'd come down to North Carolina to run the summer shootout, and I would just go. My way to get out of there was just to go racing, and it didn't really get much better um, into my teenage years when I got to the point where I was graduating high school, and it was kind of a clear cut to me that I needed to get out of New Jersey, and I just wanted to race. Like, racing was like my escape. Um, so I told everybody that after Turkey Derby in 2006, I was packing my bags and leaving. And I've always been like, if I say something, I'm going to do it. Like, I'm not going back on my word. And I said I was doing it. And the day came, and my mom woke me up. She's like, you don't have to leave, you know? And I was like, no, I said I was doing it. So I packed up my Dodge Magnum with a little toolbox in the back, and I moved down here. My buddies Duncan and Patrick Molesworth had bought a house on the lake, actually, in Mooresville, back when you could find little houses on the lake for $100,000 before all the lots were bought up down here. And I moved down here and I started working on legend cars for the Pistone family. And I just went around to, I literally lived on their couch, speaking of living on couches. And I went around to every shop. I would just drive around Mooresville and get lost. I didn't know a damn person here. And I just had a chance lunch with a guy, Chuck King from New Jersey, that kind of was a friend of a friend. I would drive through Mooresville, through all the shops, and look at all the shops and drop off resumes. And at this one lunch at Subway, I just gave a resume to a guy from Roush, and I actually got a phone call to probably 2 weeks later. And he's like, hey, we saw your resume. Can you come in for an interview? And I went in there, and he had all these resumes stacked up on the floor. And he's like, see this file? Those are the ones that didn't make it. And then there was like 10 on his desk. He's like, see this file? These are the ones that did make it. And yours is on top. And I was like, it's kind of like, holy crap, that's like, it was kind of surreal. And he's like, at 19 years old, I think you've done more racing than most of the people we have. And they liked me because I was spotted, and that was kind of an option. But I got catapulted right into, at 19, I didn't know that there was 2 530s in a day. And my first job was working at the Roush finish fab shop on the Cup cars. And man, we worked in that finish fab shop. We started at 6:30. So that was a 5 a.m. wake up call to get from Mooresville to Concord. And you didn't just start at 6:30. The music got turned on in the fab shop at 6:30 and you were working. If you got there past 6:15, you were late. So that was like, I was there for 4 years, and I equated going to college. And when I went into Roush there, I could build side skirts. When I left, I could MIG weld, TIG weld, fabricate anything, change tires. I was on the road with Jamie McMurray in the 26 car. I learned how to do tires, learned how to be a road mechanic. It was just, I was like a sponge. So it was I'd say Roush was kind of like my college degree.
What were the steps between Roush and then to Penske? Because I think at least a big chunk of your time that you've talked about before is at Stewart-Haas Racing.
Yeah, so at Roush, like I said, at Roush, I was on this group called the Lunch Bunch. So it was literally the guys that worked in the shop that wanted to be picker guys, but weren't athletic enough, and nobody really had time for, so you could go out on your lunch break and use the pit equipment. So yeah, I was on the Lunch Bunch, and I wasn't going to get moved off of it because they just wanted me to be a fabricator there, which I understand. So I ended up getting a job at Stewart-Haas as the backup tire changer. And I was in the aero group as well. I've always kind of leaned on, I don't know that I was like talented enough as a tire changer off the bat to make it. So I had to lean on like my fabrication skills and my mechanic skills and my, overall racing knowledge to hang on long enough to become good enough to change tires. So I was a backup tire changer, and I was in the aero group, and I would go on the road and be a fabricator on the 14 car. Actually, in 2011, I left Roush and end of 2010, 2011, I started started there, and that's kind of where I got I would say my master's degree.
Yep.
I was there for 3 years. I was with Tony the first year we won the championship. It was just surreal. It was a great group of guys. The next year, Danica came in. She ran a part-time schedule. I changed tires for her, and my first full-time tire changing gig was with Robbie Benton and his team. Alex Bowman drove that car. I was actually changing fronts and rears, kind of swapping back and forth. And then my third year there, I got moved on to Newman's car. So I did about 3/4 of the season with Newman. And it just kind of became apparent that I had the shop had kind of changed and I had kind of changed, and it was time to go on. And there was an opening at Penske, and I've been there ever since.
So as you get to Penske now, that we know of you right now, but there were still steps along the way at Penske too. I mean, you've kind of went. How did you get with Ryan? Was it Ryan right off the bat, or were you with another team first?
Yeah, no, I got hired there to be on the 2 car with Paul Wolf, and I'd kind of gotten hurt, and they were developing a new pit gun, and it just did not work. It did not work for me at all. And I was on the 2 car all off season and went to the Daytona 500 and just had a terrible speed week. Actually ended up getting pulled off the car in Daytona. Once again, learning through that experience had to cling on to my mechanic. I was a mechanic at Penske as well. I worked in the shop, and that's kind of what kept me around and kept me relevant, but I had to fight back. And it was, looking back at it, it was a little bit of a blessing in disguise. Obviously I missed out on some wins with Brad through that time, but I was with Ryan all through the Truck Series, all the Xfinity wins. I mean, I think we won. Chris Conklin, and Andrew Lackey, who you've had Chris on here, and Andrew Lackey is the gas man on the 2 car now, because Chris was our jack man. Chris was a phenomenal jack man too at the time, but we had so much fun with that 22 Xfinity car. I think we won like 5 championships throughout the course of it, and so many race wins. And we got to grow with Ryan, and we did that 21 deal, which I will forever be grateful for that. Being on that 21 deal with Eddie Wood and going up there with Len and Leonard and Glenn, and then showing us around Stewart that first time when we all kind of merged and we're going to go race that part-time schedule for them. That was such a cool deal. Like that's like top-notch NASCAR. It doesn't get any better than that. To me, that's like NASCAR royalty, those guys. So to be around them, and then Jeremy Bowens will tell you this. I single-handedly will take credit for the 99th win at Pocono. I had a loose wheel to start the race. If you go back and watch this, we did right sides, first pit stop of the day. I had a loose right front. I maybe had 3 loose wheels my whole career. That was one of them. It put us on a different strategy where we were the first car on 4 tires, beat Martin Truex out of the pits. And I'm not saying that it was my fault, but I'm not saying it wasn't my fault that we won that race.
And it's still
I don't even remember that part of it at the beginning of the race. The first pit stop. It was first pit stop.
Oh yeah, I will never forget it. I promise you that. But yeah, that was. I mean, what a cool memorable thing to be a part of. And I wish we could have got 100 with them as a group, because our group was so strong. Our group was just so strong, such a good team. And it was just such a good mix of like Penske guys. And the funny part was like Kirk Almquist, Kirk was the guy that was stomping on Ricky Rudd's hood back in the day. And they were like, I remember walking to Wood Brothers shop, and Len Wood was like, weren't you jumping on the hood of my race car a couple of years ago? Because he was with Kevin Harvick when they got in a fight at Richmond. And just to be there for those conversations, man, like I, as much as anything, I'm a student of the sport and a fan of the sport. And it's just so cool to see all that come together. And that is one that I will cherish forever.
The teams, a little bit after that, when you get there was the crew chief swap. Is that what happened when the guys got moved around there for a little bit and you end up on a different team?
Yeah, they just switched all of everybody's team. I think that, Roger, who just, I don't know, it's well above my pay grade. They just pretty much tell me what fire suit to wear and which one to jump out in front of. But yeah, we got switched. We were with Brad for 2 years, and then Austin. I was with Austin for half a season, and then it kind of jumbled up the 12 car, and I got we moved some guys around, and I got put back on the 12 car. And I've been there for the last year and a half.
Yeah, I
What
would say
did
May
you
11th. I would say May
yeah.
11th, 2022, because if you Google your name and put news, it comes. It's like the first 10 things is that date that they made the switch.
I could tell you where I was because I was. We had won Daytona 500. That pit crew that I was on, it was the first year I won Lugnut. Those guys are like my best friends. Pat Gray, Jesse Mills, Andrew Lackey. Like I said, they're like my best friends. The 12 was really having a hard time just with even getting along. And I was outside watering my plants. We had just gotten back from the zoo, and Ray Gallahan, our pit coach, called me and said, "Hey, man, I don't know if you ever know Ray. Hey, man, how's it going?" And I'm like, "Are you firing me or something?" And he goes, well, kind of. I'm like, "What?" "Well, you're getting fired from the 2 car and you're on the 12. I'll see you tomorrow." And he just like, I was like, "Oh, is it my whole team?" "Nope, just you." And that was like, I was like, okay. And that, that was, I have worked with the 12 car guys. Like Dave Nichols Mule is one of the first tire guys that I ever worked with 17, 18 years ago. Right. And a lot of those guys, like if you look up Raymond Fox,
Yeah.
and you see like the badass pictures of him with Davey Allison, like that team is a bunch of like, I don't mean to overuse the term, but it's a bunch of dudes. And yeah, it's been really cool to grow with them. You guys listen, the struggles that we all had early, they're documented well. But we all worked through together and we all came out of it the other side. And that's, that's why when it came down to the stretch and it was time to win a championship, there was nobody on our team that wasn't ready for that and wasn't surprised because we had worked through all of the situations.
Yeah, I was going to say, you've mentioned previously, I think even on Stacking Pennies, that you described working on the 12 crew as like the hardest crew to work on pit road. And it's not necessarily chemistry or team wise, it's just the chatter from the outside. So do you guys pay attention to any of that? Do you see guys just shut down social media and stay away from it? Because it's really easy for fans to have knee-jerk reactions to things, and it's always funny to me when you guys get blamed or they say that pit crew's bad when it's like actually like a strategy call that was made. Like how do you guys let that stuff kind of bounce off of you, or does it affect you sometimes?
I don't know how this is going to be taken in here, but I'm gonna put it out there in the universe for all the Blaney fans to hear. Blaney fans are the absolute worst on Twitter ever, right? Like, I don't know. I've worked for a couple different drivers, but like, I would get to the point where like, I remember leaving Martinsville one time and I was like, "Oh,
I think I know
let's
the
read
race.
some mean tweets. Let's read some mean tweets here, boys." And Chris Conklin was like, "Stop it. Please stop reading this." Cause it was just like hurting his feelings. I think there was a couple Martinsville races that happened like that there, but there's times for sure. Like, look, we are professionals. There is no higher level of training than what we have at this job. I assure you, I know that I suck before you know that I suck. Like, I'm living it. And that being said, the 12 car was one of the hardest cars to pit just because it was like we would find new and interesting ways to lose races. And it was just a lot of the stuff was stuff that you couldn't prepare for. It was like, wait, what? Like the pit book sign broke and fell off and got the hose stuck under the car. Like, what? And that was just like every week. And what we didn't do well, and Ryan will admit that he didn't do well either, is we didn't handle those problems to the best of our ability. We let those problems take us out of the race, right? And then we have a guy named Jeremy Boone, who we work with, and he brings up a lot of different stories, but he gave us a book, and actually Hassler gave us all this book at the beginning of last year. It's called The Obstacle is the Way, by Ryan Holiday. It's a book about stoicism, and it just talks about like, hey, man, you're going to hit obstacles and you have to go straight for it. We don't try to get around it. We don't not talk about it. Like, we hit these obstacles head on. And that was, I think the biggest difference from having a winless season last year to going and winning some of the biggest races of the year this year and bringing home a championship. So it's, I guess the best way I can sum it up is that you guys have been Blaney fans. You've been in the trenches with us, right? Like we're all in this together, and I include you guys in on this team. We have all lost races every single way that you can possibly lose a race. And before the championship race at Phoenix, there was a lot of that noise, right? How are they going to lose it this time? What's going to happen? Even Talladega, Martinsville, all that stuff because of what happened the year before. And there's a song that my kids listen to, and it's like, "We're going on a bear hunt, got my banana." And it says something. It says, "I'm not scared." And it's like, you can't go under it. You can't go over it. You can't go around it. You got to go through it. Right. And like we went through it. We didn't go around it. We didn't go over it. We didn't go under it. We went straight through it. We faced all the bad things head on. We had all the hard conversations. And that's how we got through the other end.
Yeah. I know from listening to the podcast you're on that you do a great job every week of explaining, sometimes it's something that didn't even the driver might have done. And people don't want to hear that, but too deep in the box, not deep enough in the box, or something like hidden on pit road, like following the car that you're pitting behind and needing to leave a gap so that you guys don't get run over. People don't, it's never, I guess, maybe been explained. And it's a great thing that you do on your podcast. Hopefully more people find that podcast every week, so that you can explain those things to them. Cause you don't just explain the 12 team, you explain anything that might've happened during pit stop. And, I think it's great information you give every week there.
Yeah, it's really, there's a lot of stuff on pit road. And I think that, the pit reporters and everybody do a great job, but just analyzing pit road, we're just scratching the surface of, because there's a lot of stuff that, like, all these teams invest millions of dollars into their pit department is a huge just asset of a race team now, because there's really no easier way to pass cars than there is on pit road or B path. And just explaining why it happened, what happened, instead of just saying, "Oh, they sucked, they lost 4 spots," right? Because you can come in and do a 9.5 and gain 4 spots. You can come in and do a 9.5 and lose 4 spots the next time. Well, why? What happened? Or why did they do a 10 flat? Did this guy just suck and miss a lug nut? No. Okay, watch. Let me explain to you what happened, where they lost time. And it starts getting super interesting when you understand what it is. Now, there's a point where you start making excuses, right? But you just look at it with your blinders off. Okay, because that's all my life has been, right? Figuring out where to gain hundredths and tenths of a second. So if I can use that knowledge to make the viewers experience a little bit better, and you have a deeper understanding of it, that's what it's all about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. These last 2 years, you've had this whole new way of pitting with the single lug nut. Kind of tell people a little bit about left-hand pull and right-hand pull and how that's changed, and are there any changes coming this year too?
This is the first year that I feel like I've taken an off season, because we went straight from 2021 doing 5 lug nuts right into doing 1 lug nut, and none of us knew anything about 1 lug nut. We had 10 weeks of practice before we went to the Daytona 500. And hell, when we got to the Daytona 500, we weren't even sure that the wheels were going to go on the car, because we didn't know if the dowel pin holes were big enough. So there was just a lot of unknowns. And through, I don't know, call it 30, 40 years of 5 lug nut pit stops, whenever the Woods started doing it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Up until 2021, we would see new stuff happen that we never thought would happen. Like when high res cameras came out, we'd see different problems. So we were still working through problems after 30 years of developing this pit stop. Okay, so now we're going to do a whole different pit stop with all new equipment and go to the Daytona 500 next week, right? It's like, okay, we had to work through all of those problems. And now you're going to do less work, right? You're going to hit 1 lug nut instead of 5. So what does that mean? It's going to be easier? Oh, no. It's not going to be easier. We're going to go 2 seconds faster than we've ever done it before. So it's just like, and then it was like each week, if you were the top dog 1 week, just wait 3 weeks. and you'd be 10th or 11th, there'd be somebody 3/10 faster than you. So I started out right-handed, like a lot of people did, changing with the gun in my right hand, pulling the trigger with my right hand, and pulling with my right hand. Well, from the time it goes to let off the trigger to grab the wheel to pull it and roll it, that's like 3 or 4 tenths of a second. So last season, off season, I went straight from right-handed to changing left-handed. Because even though we ended the season as a good pit crew, my pit coach said, "Well, do you want to win the championship? Do you want to be great? Do you want to be one of the best on pit road? Because if you do, you got to do this." And I really didn't want to, but he said, "Look, if you want a spot starting on this car, you're going to have to do it." So that was frustrating. That was really, really hard. The growing pains of that really cost us a good finish at California, because we got missed my button and put us behind. We lost like 5 or 6 spots. Then we came in the next stop, and the hose got under the car because it was just a totally different way to pull the hose as well. We lose like 15 spots. We end up, someone misses a shift. We blow the nose off the car when we probably have the best car at the racetrack. So like that sucked. But I was like, well, we kind of knew that we were going to have a little bit of issues learning how to do it. And because of that, we got better as a team. But it came with some crucifixion too, whether it be on Twitter or even in the shop. But like, that was part of the process, unfortunately.
You mentioned that winless season in 2022 outside of winning the All-Star race. But that team still at points of the year, like led the points, had a kind of like a crazy run through the playoffs that was just like all about survival over and over again between Daytona and Bristol, and some other points. Just miss. I mean, it's one of those things that, some mistakes were made down the line that kept you guys out of the championship four. I mean, we can say it's Ryan. Ryan admittedly has said it multiple times, even in his championship press conference, that he made mistakes in 2022. But you guys had arguably the best car at Phoenix that year. Probably was heartbreaking standing there watching Ryan run second when probably could have had a shot to win it. But was there any confidence that grew from that experience in 2022, knowing that, the pit crew was coming together, outside of a couple of mistakes, the driver was plenty capable of winning a championship? And obviously that happens in 2023, but did you kind of see a light in 2022 at all, knowing that the next year could be your year?
I told Roger Penske at the championship party, we're going to do this again next year for the 12. Like I knew that we were a championship caliber team then, and I believe in our team and everybody on it now. And I saw I saw the fire it put in Ryan and the maturity. Like, really, that there's nothing that'll mature you more than like a gut punch like that. Not only did we lose the championship, and we were very happy. Joey Logano was one of my best friends, and I train with his pit crew every day, right? Those guys are like my family. I'm with them sometimes more than I'm with my family. So happy to see them win. But when you lose and it's that close to you, there's also a little bit of bittersweetness where you're like, damn, that should have been me, right? So it was a very weird sensation because there was nothing that was bitter towards those guys. Like, I couldn't have been happier for my teammates, but I couldn't have wanted that more for myself. And seeing how close it was, and seeing how our team, seeing how close it was, they felt the same exact way. And Jonathan Hassler's done such a good job getting this team together, and we work out together. Everybody gets like, I know it's dumb to say, but everybody gets along. Like, there's no throwing each other under the bus. There's no, if Ryan slides through the pit box or Ryan makes a mistake, there's no pointing fingers at him. And if the pit crew inevitably is going to make a mistake every now and then, and the road crew's not saying, "Oh, these guys suck," it's how do we fix it? What are we doing to fix it? And everybody's pulling the rope in the same direction.
I would have to say, you mentioned him, Jonathan Hassler. That's a guy with a thankless job that I think doesn't get enough credit, especially from fans. I mean, I know we go from having Jeremy for a long time, so everybody was just used to Jeremy. And then the switch up to Todd Gordon, who's a championship winning crew chief, has a much higher profile, ends up having like a radio career and stuff after that. So a lot more people know Todd. And then you have Jonathan that, just kind of coming out of this engineering role to be a crew chief. But I just think he doesn't get enough credit.
If anybody ever says anything bad about Jonathan Hassler on Twitter, you send them straight to me. If they can bash us all day long, that's fine, right? But there's nobody that works harder than that guy. That son of a gun stares at graphs all day long. I don't even know what kind of graphs he's staring at. Every time I go in his office, I'm like, what the hell are you staring at? There's a reason that car was so good at Phoenix, and he tirelessly worked on it. And he's just a salt of the earth person. Um, and I will take absolutely no Jonathan Hassler hate from anybody that has to say anything.
Didn't you encounter a little bit of a medical issue? And how did that coming back from that issue? What was the challenge like getting back into being physical? Getting back into going to the ropes of being a pit crew member again.
Yeah, so I went to New Jersey the couple days before Pocono. I drove up, brought the kids up there. Ended up Saturday morning before Pocono having to get my appendix out while I was in New Jersey. So 10 out of 10 recommend missing Pocono, Watkins Glen, Indy, Michigan, and Richmond. But I think, and I've said this, so yeah, I had to sit out a couple of races. Thank God we have Pam Brown, who is our athletic trainer. I worked with her tirelessly 6 days a week on recovery, staying strong enough. And when I came back for Darlington, I came back for Daytona. I was 15 pounds lighter and stronger than I was when I went. Like, it was maybe one of the best things that's ever happened to me in my life, because I've never, being on the road for my whole adult life, I've never taken 5 weeks off ever. Right? It was kind of like a reset and a recharge. And I think the one thing that I was proud of sitting back, right? It wasn't me that did it, but I was just proud of our team. Is there was a point in time where we couldn't get anybody to pit the 12 car and do worth a damn. Right? There was a culture there where it was just very challenging to pit the car, to do a good job. You guys have lived it, right? It was like, what's going to happen next? And we plugged in a 21-year-old kid, Joe Dilly, and he did a seamless, great job. And the culture that we've built on that car now, for him to be comfortable enough to perform and everybody accept him and set us up for a championship run, I think that's what I was most proud of last year, other than winning the championship, is like, we have built a badass culture on this car in just, 1 year's time.
You were talk about winning this past off season. You do a little bit of winning, getting back into racing these last 2 or 3 years, right? You've been doing some indoor racing.
I've been doing it for almost 9 years now.
Is that how many it is now? Okay.
Yeah. This year, this off season, I drove. I started off driving for Liquid Lusiconi, who is just a legend out of Philadelphia, super modified guy, indoor midget guy, sprint cars. So I went to the Rumble in Fort Wayne, which is kind of up in your neck of the woods. A lot of sharing guys, a lot of sprint car guys there. Mm-hmm. And we actually won the Rumble in Fort Wayne in a full national midget Friday night, and then Saturday we broke a motor, but we got a win at the Rumble, and then Lou's car got like a cool championship belt, and then the indoor auto racing series that races in Allentown, Pennsylvania, and Atlantic City, New Jersey, with my own TQ midget that I bought that car with my truck tire changing money. When I used to change tires on trucks, and I would get paid cash. I kind of squirreled all that away and bought that car, and we're now second. 9 years later, we're second on the all-time win list. We've won 2 championships with it, and it's just so much fun. And so I've got the same guys, the same car and motor that I've started with, and we just go up there and have an absolute blast in the winters. And I said it I said it to Steve Post at the end of that. Talk about building a good culture, right? That really, really helps me with that.
You also used I guess all that fab shop knowledge that you had to build a street stock too in the last couple of years, right? Didn't you run that a couple places too?
Yeah. So Carl Fredrickson with Speedway Illustrated magazine. We built me and Jerry Kelly, who Jerry Kelly was the car chief for Joey Logano with Paul Wolf. I actually reached out to Carl Fredrickson from Speedway Illustrated because we built a dirt modified first, and we took an old car that Kyle Strickler had out of the weeds that was just wrecked, and I think we called it man, what did we call it? Whatever. We revitalized this car. Resurrection is what we called it. So we took an old car, chassis number 3 Longhorn. It was like the first modified Longhorn ever built. It was wrecked. It had weeds growing through it. It had ant piles in it. We blasted it, put a clip on it. We built it. We built a badass race car. We documented in Speedway Illustrated magazine. We brought it to the World Finals at Charlotte with Kyle Strickler driving it. First lap on the track, we missed practice. First lap on the track, it set quick time. Won the heat race and won the feature. So he never went on the track without it being in first place. And then we took Joe the Gano to Evolution and ran Bristol with it, and ended up selling that. And then I did a when they announced that they were going to run Wilkesboro with the racetrack revival. Carl Fredrickson, again from Speedway Illustrated, had a dirt street stock, and I told him, I'm like, I'm thinking about doing this. He's like, I got a car, you can have it. And it was here like 2 weeks later, and I chalk cut rebuilt that thing. We went to Wilkesboro. We documented that in Speedway Illustrated as well. We had our fair share of problems, but at the end of the day, we came home with a 3rd place finish and got to go around Wilkesboro with the old surface. It was really, really cool.
Do you see driving at the grassroots level or whatever level you want to as something you would want to do post pit crew career? Because I mean, you're not going to be a pit crew member forever, but I'm sure you're still going to want to be involved in the sport. Would you want to explore that, or would you want to explore more options maybe in a NASCAR organization?
Both, for sure. I do it now, right? I just fly up to Stafford, go to Wall Stadium when I can. It's tough though. Like as much racing I could do. I have a great car owner, Mike Davini, from New Hampshire, and he wants to do a bunch of races with asphalt modifieds, and it's just tough because I take my job as a tire changer really seriously, and I'm not going to do anything that's going to put me in jeopardy of not being at 100% come Sunday morning. So I have to be very selective with my races that I do. So it has to be like a midweek show, something that's not, the week of the Coca-Cola 600, like stuff like that. But I found with short track racing, an old school driver, Lenny Boyd, told me, don't confuse a bad effort with being better than no effort at all. So I really only pick races that I can put 100% towards. That's why the indoor auto racing series fits my profile, or fits our racing profile very well. I'm also building an asphalt modified right now because I hate money and don't value my time. So I'm going to run Bowman Gray April 20th. It's the Saturday before Talladega. So we're going to do some fun stuff with that. So yeah, I'll always be a short track racer. I'll probably do more of it when I retire, but I'm also really in I always want to work in the sport, and my passion is working in NASCAR for sure.
Well, you have your own business too, right? With Flow Coat.
Yeah.
Tell people a little bit more about that, because I see some Instagram pictures, some great stuff. Are you mainly supplying NASCAR, or are you taking outside people, or?
So I was actually it's funny how this started. I was in the gym with our rear tire changer, Zach Price. He was on the 22. I was on the 12, I think then, and I was like, man, I want to do something for myself. I want to build something myself. He said, man, you should start powder coating. My cousin does it. And I looked into it, and fast forward 4 or 5 years, and I started kind of as a hobby, because it was like the same day he told me I should do that Randy LaJoy told me, man, I need a powder coater to do my seats. And I was like, maybe this is a sign. So we started flow coating kind of as a hobby out of my buddy Greg off Axis Paint Shop. I had a little oven and a little spray booth back there, and I used to just get powder all over everything that he had. And fast forward to today, we've got 4 or 5 employees full time, just digging in there. And we have done this off season. We have done all the pit equipment you'll see on pit road for Hendrick, RCR, Penske, Front Row, Rick Ware, a lot of Gibbs stuff. Like almost every team that you can think of, we're doing all their stuff. 2311, we just did all their stuff for their new shop, along with a lot of canopies, a lot of different just a lot of the architectural stuff. Obviously racing is our backbone. We do all of the Joy seating seats, all of Butler seats, a lot of race cars, all of Alex Bowman's cars that you see at the Chili Bowl, all of Alex Bowman's sprint cars. You name it, we do. Just every SRX car that you've ever seen compete, we powder coated every part and piece on that, even the gold wheels. So I'm really proud of like what we've been able to do for the racing industry and the friends we've been able to meet through that. But man, owning your own business is a lot of work.
One fun question for you that we'd like to ask some people from time to time. If you had the skill sets, now you've been worked in the shop, you've been a driver yourself, you've worked on a pit crew. If you had the skill set, is there any other position on the team, crew chief, engineer, anything that if you could jump into tomorrow that you think would be something fun to do,
Dude,
that you'd like to do?
yeah, it'd be the driver for sure. I won, we lost, you fix it. I'd be the best driver ever.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, the driver role is just unmatched, right? The
Yep.
compensation you get, the free time you get, but you have to be great. You have to be great at what you do. Your butt's on the hot seat every year. But yeah, I always, before I met my wife, she was Jimmy Johnson's. She worked in marketing and she worked at Team Lowe's Racing with Jimmy Johnson. She was on the road doing social media for Lowe's. Pretty much, for lack of a better term, she was marketing girl for the 48 team. And before that, I just wanted to be a car chief, tire changer. There's a guy named Todd Ziegler, super old school guy. He was awesome. He was speaking about left-handed tire changing. He was the first car chief I ever worked for, and he was a left-handed tire changer for Jamie McMurray, 26 Crown Royal car. And he was the car chief and the front tire changer. And I'm like, that's it. That's what I'm going to be. I'm going to be a car chief and the tire changer. And then I'm going to work my way to be the crew chief and I'm running this place one day. And as the sport progressed, you had to pick one. And once I met my wife and I realized we're going to have a family, leaving on Thursdays and being gone all weekend and coming right back and going right back to the shop. I mean, it's a grueling life and you sacrifice people like I know that we talk about, again, it's talked about how much we sacrifice to race for a living, but I mean, it's even more than you would think. And it's not so much like it's the small stuff, right? It's the donuts with dad that I got to do this morning. It's the daddy daughter dances. It's the being there when your kid needs you, right? That you are just not home for. And you're trying to do it on Zoom, and it's those little things that are tough. And I made that decision right then that like, no, I'm going to pursue this pit crew stuff because it gives me the most free time to be there for my family. I have to fly out Sunday morning. I come back Sunday night. I could drop my kids off in the morning and go to pit practice. So I am super happy where I am in my career. I'm very thankful to be on the team I am, and unless I can go drive these things, then I will. I'll keep jumping out in front of them.
So you mentioned in 2022, you told Mr. Penske that the 12 car was going to win the championship. You guys did go out and do that in 2023. No one in this elimination format has gone back to back at winning a championship. What is a successful 2024 to you? Do you have to go back to back, or you just looking to win some more races?
Starts in 2 weeks. We got to get this Daytona 500 monkey off our back with Ryan. I mean, I know we did it. I was lucky enough to do it with Austin, but there's no better racer than Ryan Blaney on a super speedway. His numbers speak for himself. Obviously, we've lost Josh Williams, but enter Timmy Fedewa, who is a guy that's done it himself. He's won championships with the 4 car, and I'm sure he's hungry because who did we beat at Talladega?
Yep.
The 4 car and Timmy Fedewa. So yeah, Josh will be missed, but man, I'm so fired up to get down the speed weeks with Ryan, especially after Talladega being a must win. And we went out there and did it. This sport never owes you anything. You have to earn it always. But I can't, and I'm just going to keep saying how excited I am to go down there. But I think it starts with Daytona, and it's the same. It's business as usual. We prepare each and every week to be a championship team. And at the end of the day, if you're working at Team Penske and you don't win the championship, it's not a successful year.
Well, thanks, Ryan. Thanks for giving us your time. I think we got some really good stories and insight from you. And we've been wanting to pick your brain for a long time and really glad that you're able to come on and chat with us.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me, man. It's like I said before we started, it's guys like you that are the backbone of the sport. You guys what makes it go around, and we appreciate you guys, and I look forward to seeing you some races this year.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
That was Ryan Flores, the front tire changer for Ryan Blaney's number 12 Team Penske Ford Mustang.
Well, thanks everybody for coming. I hope you enjoyed it.